In Consider the Following, Boston, Barry, Bunker and Joanna live and work on the Appi Valley Railway, a fictional railway in the West Midlands of the United Kingdom. The line begins at Bridget Horne, passing through countryside and villages before reaching the junction at Tidderminster. In reality, the railway is very heavily inspired by the Severn Valley Railway, which runs between Kidderminster and Bridgnorth, and is well worth a visit, especially when it reopens this coming April. To date, there have been over 16 episodes in which the railway features, but what of the map of the railway? Where is everything on the line located, and how far apart? This is what I've always been fascinated by, and while for the longest time I've been able to memorise key points for filming and such, I've always wanted to do something that would act as a complete resource and jumping off point for nailing down the line's routes. A few important points need to be clarified before we begin. First off, this isn't going to be perfect. There may well be things here which are contradictory to some episodes, lines or scenes. However, I've done as best as possible a job to make this congruent based on what there is. Secondly, I'm still developing elements with the map and the route. I may even do an update to this video in future with new advancements. But as for now, I'd like to think I've developed enough with the map already to make this video. Thirdly, I apologise if some details, particularly to do with the villages of the lines, feel a little vague or as if not enough is explained. My primary concern was outlining the route of the line, and to my mind anything to do with the villages of the line was less of a priority, and again will likely make for a good follow-up video if I wish to produce one. Fourth, there will likely be future episodes which aren't referenced here. Everything mentioned here is up to Signalman's Curse, the last episode, which I highly recommend you go watch as it came out a few days ago, and I'm not spoiling any future episodes. Finally, some locations may well appear inconsistent from episode to episode, such as Bridget Horne's background buildings always changing. I'm making a series at the end of the day, to entertain and to make people laugh and to inspire and whatnot. Some locations will look different from time to time, but it doesn't make it any less the same location. But without further ado, here, ladies and gentlemen, is the pilot to a hopefully brand new Two-Face Tart Productions miniseries. For the sake of this video, I produced a very naff, it's even in the name, map of the railway, solely for the purpose of illustrating our journey. I will probably commission a much improved version of it at some stage, watch this space. So, we start our journey at Bridget Horne. The station was constructed from 1875 and opened in 1880. Located beside the station is the engine shed with a bay platform for engines to rest as well as for goods and other vehicles to be stored when not in use. Bridget Horne Motive Power Depot is where Boston, Barry and Bunker will wake for their day's work and return again at night, as well as where they rest when not out with a train. The station is also where Joanna will deliver coal to for the engine's operation, as the sheds do not have a coal bunker, only the engine bunker. Here, Shindig, the infamous railcar coach thingy's engine caught fire, much to the shock of both Boston and the local passengers, and was where Jerome, the line's former resident engine, was displayed for the railway's 80th anniversary since the complete construction of the railway. An evening goods train which runs non-stop into Birmingham, known as the Twilight Goods, pulled usually by Barry at least once every fortnight, leaves from here. The village of Bridget Horne is located only a short few minutes from the station and can be reached by foot or road. The village itself is home to the centre of the canal, and the Bridget Horne Hospice is located to the east of the city. The town hall is a luxurious Tudor building dating back to 1504. The current mayor of the city is Mr. Undergrundy, having been elected in 1955. The village is home to Mr. Strava, an infamous environmentalist, Eden Mulberry Dunvis, who hosts radio programme Appy Mornings to All, and of course Mr. Richard Cardio, who, like his father before him, is tasked with looking after the Appi Valley Railway. Leaving Bridget Horne, we pass through the shunting yards where wagons and coaches are kept. It is here where, as I'm sure you will all know very well, Boston collected his NE brake van for the Permanent Way Department's works train. Crossing over the bridge, where Boston and his supervisor would encounter a sheep nesting by the signal box, we are now running through the Appy countryside. We briefly pass through the now derelict halt of Idlington, 1 mile from Bridget Horne, which was closed during the early 1900s. However, the halt is still used for pick-up goods on occasion, such as the time Boston collected Mr. Strava's horse, Eileen. Various scrap parts can be found here, and many railway workmen will tell you that attempts to run scrap trains have been foiled due to trespassers stealing parts without permission. Leaving Idlington, we pass the River Appy, which feeds into the Bridget Horne Canal. We then end up 2 miles further on at our second big stop, Marston Road. Marston Road's most notable landmark is the statue of Joseph Marston, located within the square. Joseph was a wealthy businessman who earned his fortune after setting up a farming industry in 1865, where shrubbery and trees could be collected and planted. Here, during a rainy day, Boston can be seen collecting Marston Road shrubbery for the improvement of the embankment outside of Lowley Station. Marston Road Station, opened in 1874, is a short stop for trains and has a bay platform for goods wagons and coaches not in use to be stored. It was here that Barry's deaf passenger would cause a great deal of trouble for everyone on his passenger train. It was also here where Barry and Bunker would fall out over Bunker losing his hat and where their train would accidentally split in half. The village of Marston Road is located a few short yards away from the station. Leaving Marston Road, we run down along the valley at a 1-in-2 gradient for a short while before arriving at Lowley. Lowley, 1.5 miles from Marston Road, was the very first station on the line to be constructed in 1853, when the coal in the village was discovered and a railway needed to be constructed to take the coal away. Lowley was named in irony, as the station, mine, branch line to the mine, and the village all happened to be at the highest point of the railway's route, 759 feet above sea level. The station is home to a passing loop with only one platform, although the passenger timetables are scheduled so that only one passenger train will enter the section at any one time. The loop is also present for coal trains to be stored and shunted by Joanna or any other engine that is present to do the work. It was here where the infamous signalman's curse concerning Jerome and Chepstow occurred, as well as where Joanna hosted charity brake van rides, courtesy of the Lowley Mining Company, to raise money for the Bridget Horne Hospital, and where she used said brake vans to rescue a group of stranded passengers after their bus broke down. It was also here where the railway was cut off from the junction due to a landslide during a washout. Leaving Lowley, there is a junction present where the line diverts east towards the village of Lowley and the Lowley Mining Company, established in 1848. Living in Lowley is Mr. Edwin Michael, one of Mr. Cardio's business associates who run the coal mine, and a shed there is present for Joanna, the mine's resident engine. Why does the mine use a large prairie as opposed to a small shunting engine like an austerity tank or Hunslet? As our good friend Ringo Starr once said,
"That's another story."
There are exchange sidings present to store empty wagons when not in use so they can be taken and filled with coal at the mine when needed. The running line passes below this siding and crosses below a bridge where the outskirts of Lowley village can be seen. A sect of cottages, one of which formerly lived in by rogue man Flynn Sanity, is passed, along with a stately home where the landlord lives. These cottages are popular for holidaymakers coming to the valley, as Lowley is home to many picturesque views and acts as the second biggest hub of the Appi Valley after Bridget Horne. Safe to say, the coal mine definitely brought a lot of commercialism to the area. After a drop, we coast along a short stretch of running line where Barry had his encounter with Mr. Strava and Baracus the farmer, before then pulling into the, dubbed least interesting place on the line, station of Leary, opened in 1857. It is 2.5 miles from Lowley. It is not known why its negative perception exists. Perhaps it is due to the fact that the area seems to generate an aura of uninterestingness whenever anyone comes to the station, but no one can say for certain. It was here where Bunker collected a guard on the night he would be ambushed by Flynn's Sanity, and where Boston caused trouble due to his trucks derailing after helping to ballast the bay platform. The village is home to a county show which has run every year in August since the 1900s, and was where Chepstow's bull was due to be delivered to. It is unknown where the village's name originated from, although many sources and historians seem to believe it could be linked to the idea that it's a mispronunciation of Erie, which is what it is, that a station not really that boring is thought of as boring. We depart Leary passing under a bridge, and it's smooth running along the Appy countryside, crossing a trestle bridge before pulling into the village of Webley. A small siding is present before we reach the station to store goods wagons when not in use, close by the running line. It was here where Flynn's Sanity vandalised and trespassed on the line, and Bunker would feel the consequences of his bad behaviour. Named after Norman conqueror Webb Leeson, the station of which was constructed in 1857 and is the penultimate stop on our journey, 1.5 miles from Leary. Webley Station is notable for being the only station on the line to date with a footbridge as opposed to a ground crossing, but this pales in comparison to the former Webley workshop. Opened in 1920 to act as a base for the branch line to conduct repairs and overhauls on its engines. However, the workshop would prove to be underutilised due to being less advanced than other workshops across the Great Western Railway, for instance those at Swindon, and as such would fall into a decline in the 1950s. The workshop had been used as a base for storing weapons during World War II. Mr. Cardio would make one last-ditch attempt to keep the workshop open by making a request to send the Talyllyn Railway's number 3, Sir Hayden, to be mended there at a top rate when time came for his repair. And here Bunker would deliver him to be fixed, but even this wasn't enough to save the workshop, and it would cease operations entirely in early 1960. One of the last jobs the workshop undertook was repairing Bunker when he had derailed as a result of Flynn's Sanity's actions, and where said individual would unintentionally give himself up. Leaving Webley, we cross a short junction where the defunct line towards the village of Sourcross once stood, and north where we will be going towards the Junction. It was around here where Boston took some permanent way workers to mend the line, and where his NE brake van would roll backwards due to a faulty coupling. 1 mile from Webley, we cross the Six Ducks Crossing, named as such due to the repeated sightings by the evening watchman of 6 ducks which would cross the crossing at night. It was also here where Barry would encounter Mr. Strava and Eileen. We then shortly come to the famous Tidderminster tunnel, a 540-yard tunnel, the entrance on the Bridget Horne side where Boston would break down with the railway's 80th anniversary train. The tunnel is frequently stated as one of the most impressive landmarks on the line, as the embankment of which the tunnel passes through was deemed too steep and wide to go around. The tunnel was constructed between 1854 and 1857, ready in time for the opening between Tidderminster and Webley. Although to get it ready on time, some navvies would see, well, let's just say, less than favourable ends. However, the tunnel certainly makes a statement when travelling from Tidderminster to Bridget Horne. Having exited the tunnel, we pass by the Tidderminster Chocolate Factory's sidings, of which Tidderminster is best renowned for, as it provides much of the industry within the town, and then swing west under a bridge to adjoin with the Western Region main line. Otto and Crawley, 2 engines who are known to the Appi Valley engines, are often found here while doing other duties. Crawley tells funny stories and exchanges good conversation, while Otto brags about his locomotive MP status. It is here where Barry would begrudgingly use a turntable and be caught doing so by Otto, as well as where Crawley would spook Otto into derailing, and where Crawley and Boston would reunite after many years of having not seen each other. We then shortly enter the station of Tidderminster Junction, the final station on our journey and subsequently the last stop for Appi Valley services. The station is the oldest on our route, having been built in 1840 by the Great Western, originally to broad gauge and then converted to standard gauge in 1860. A bay platform is reserved for the services from Bridget Horne. Engines found here are usually Kings, Cities, Counties and Granges. It was here where Jerome would meet former shedmate Chepstow, a Dean Goods, for the first time, and where Barry would reunite with Bolton Barkington, a man from Barry's past that he formerly detested. Having dropped off all passengers, the engine will then run round its train and begin the journey back along the Appy Valley to Bridget Horne. So, there you have it. That is, as described as best as possible, the map of the Appy Valley Railway. Having only thought about and dreamt of doing the location of the series justice for so long, it's been fun to finally tie it all together after so long of producing the series. I'm no Reverend Audrey, or George Audrey for that matter. If there are any questions or topics that you'd like to see potentially covered in future, feel free to get in touch and I'll see what I can do. For now though, cheerio!